everybody. Thanks for joining us on another episode of Sum It Up. You know, we're always here discussing what God is saying in this hour, how we are engaging in the process of doing life in 2020 and beyond, and what does ministry look like. But I wanted to take you a little bit into a personal transformation today. So I thank you for joining. You can find us on all the different channels. So refer this out to people. But I wanted to share with you, we've been talking about destiny. We've been talking about transformation. We've been talking about all those things. Last week, we had my uncle in studio. It looks like I'm here by myself, but we're going to share a little secret for you in a minute. But I wanted to share with you, in 2014, I had the experience of being able to go to Northern Ireland with a group of pastors. At that point, I wasn't even a pastor yet officially, but definitely ministering, and went with some missions ideas and what I thought missions that I'd experienced before. But I went to Ireland and totally got transformed, met the Holy Spirit in a new way, saw miracle signs and wonders, all these different things that I had never experienced. And then I met a bunch of really cool people that I've been following, connecting with since 2014. And so today I wanted to bring you into a conversation that I wanted to share with the world, because I believe this man that we're going to talk to in a second is shifting, is seeing ministry look differently in 2020. And that as individuals, we've all shifted in one way or another. And I think that there's some form of a grief process, a reset process that we're going through, but that if we know our destiny and if we know what we're called to do, we can actually thrive in this time. We can actually go to the next level during this, whatever people are calling it, COVID-19 lockdown, whatever, 2020. Real quick, before we get into it, was at a football game Friday night, and it rained so hard we couldn't see across the field. And it was just through the whole game. It was crazy. And my wife and I, we were just drenched, and we were just laughing like, this is what this year is. It's unpredictable. But I wanted to bring you into a conversation with a friend of mine. So I want to welcome on Andi Oakes. Thank you for joining us all the way from Northern Ireland. And welcome to the Sum It Up podcast and Sum It Up studio here in Ohio. It's so great to see your face.
It's good to see you, Rob. Thank you for having me. And a huge hello from Northern Ireland, and all loads of blessings from us as well. So good to see you.
Oh man, you guys blessed me so much coming there and welcoming us, and, you know, helping me through the first time of huge jet lag and all the craziness of going to Europe. And it was just a great time. And, you know, one of the things that I noticed about Northern Ireland, about you all, is the intense love that you have for your community. And when we were there at the church and ministering in multiple churches, but when we were there in the church, and then you guys took us up and Giants Causeway and all the fun stuff we did, but just the connection that you had to your community. And I know we were talking a couple days ago about the transition that you've had to go through as a minister in 2020, and what God was sort of leading you to and transitioning out of your position, but now what God has called you to. And on our podcast, we've been talking about destiny, and that we are all on this planet for a purpose, but sometimes the means of that purpose change. So would you enlighten us on what God has been doing in you over the last year?
Ooh, wow. Okay. Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. I 100% agree with, you know, the idea of we're here for a specific purpose and a destiny. And I've always found that, you know, walking with God has been an amazing experience, a weird experience at times, you know, because the things that I plan and the things that I think that, you know, I'm going to do, I'm usually full of, you know, loads of ideas, and I usually try and start something and God just changes it, or, you know, and there's usually some seed of God in my head somewhere. And it takes a little while to kind of work it out. And this year has been I know for all of us, it's a huge year of transition. And that's a fundamental understatement, you know, which we might get into kind of later on, but it really is, it's such a fundamental understatement. But for me personally, coming into this year, I was the lead worship coordinator in our church. So for the last 10 years, I've been coordinating our worship and training up guys and being responsible for that ministry within the church, as well as speaking in church and doing teaching. And then, over the last, I think through 2019, I had this, this niggle at the back of my head that it was time for me to just take a step back and really let some of the younger guys just spread their wings. And I had one guy in mind, and he wasn't on the scene at that time. He'd been in the church previously, had gone off to get some experience in other places. And then just towards the end of 2019, he turned back up and was getting plugged into the church ministry again. And I felt that was God thing, had a conversation with our senior leadership and said, look, I think it's time for me to step back. And I always look for that moment when everybody goes, yeah, that's a great idea, and it was kind of that, and I thought, well, I either take that as a great offense or a great confirmation.
Exactly.
And so I took it as a great confirmation, and it really was. And I felt that it was right for me to do that. And so the really, God thing with it, and the really weird thing, I suppose, in one sense, was we planned this and started to talk to our worship team about it and let them know that I was going to change my role. I didn't know what my role was going to be, but I felt this is what I had to do. And we planned that we would do the handover because he was finishing up a few other things, a ministry obligations he had, and he was going to come in. And we planned this takeover, this handover in March. And that's when everything kicked off with COVID. And he is within walking distance of the church. I'm not within walking distance of the church. I'm about 20 minutes away from the church. And when everything went into lockdown, we couldn't travel. So we kept our church services going online, and he was able to step in.
Wow.
And put a minimal team together, and that minimal team, 3 or 4 of them, kept the worship going for the church for effectively the 3 months then when we weren't able to move. And I was sitting at home and I was going to my wife, look at that. When you make decisions like this, you do have a niggling doubt, and you think this has been a huge part of my life.
Right.
I've been leading, I'm in my mid 50s now. I've been leading worship since I was 16. To really step away from that significant level was a big thing, but I felt it was right. And so that, you could see God's hand for us, as a church, for me personally. So that's been a big shift for me from the church perspective.
Mm-hmm. So,
and I'm not just exploring things now to what my role looks like. So.
That's awesome. And the discovery process, I think you talked about, you could either be offended or have confirmation. And I think that, I think that we're all in that perspective. We're all in that position to have that. Either we have the right perspective of what God is doing, or we can get offended at anybody. And one thing I know about offense is that offense always reveals lack. And so, so if we're offended, there's some place that we're lacking we can discover. So there's people probably listening to this that have felt a shift coming, like you did. Maybe in 2019, they felt a shift, and now they're trying to, figure out either they got to come out of the offense that they took to the shift, or they actually took it as confirmation. They're doing something new. But there are these tactical points in our life where we have to hear the Lord and make a commitment to make a decision. And I really believe that sometimes indecision is what plagues us, and it can lead to apathy if we don't make the decision in the right moment.
I think that's a superb thing to say. I think that they are tactical moments, and I think they all do hinge on making a definitive decision. You've got to make some kind of mental switch. I think you've got to make the decision in your head and in your spirit, and then it maybe takes a step of faith. But you've got to acclimatize to that first. I've always found that the Lord allows me time to get acclimatized to the idea of something, and then you find that opportunity, or you find that right moment, that tactical moment when you should make it public, and you hold your breath and you take a step.
So a quick question. This may be going a little personal on you, but have you ever missed the tactical moment?
I probably have. I think I think I'll find out probably in retrospect.
Yes, exactly.
But yeah, I probably have missed plenty of tactical moments.
Yeah.
But that's, we're not here. We're not here to kind of be perfect.
Right.
We're here to learn,
I love that. I love looking at the Lord in Scripture. There were many people that missed tactical moments, and God said, okay, you maybe missed that tactical moment, but we're going to go, instead of going right, which is where I wanted you to go, we're going to go left. We're going to go around this corner, and we're going to end up pretty close to where you were supposed to be anyway. And it's okay that you missed the moment, but my grace is sufficient for that moment. And so there's people that have maybe gotten offended or frustrated or maybe even shut down through this whole thing. And God is saying, I believe in this hour, God is saying, if you're willing to reassess the tactical moment and allow and make a choice today and be committed and be ready to just go, we'll get you close to where you're supposed to be in the beginning.
Yeah, I think I've always been encouraged by, little kind of, I suppose, cliches and biblical sayings, but also ancient sayings. And the Japanese have an ancient saying that I heard someone share once. And it was, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is today.
Yeah.
It's this idea of every day is a new day. It's every day the grace of the Lord, his mercies are fresh and new every morning. And I think if you spend more time in the now, in the presence of God now, instead of maybe lamenting over the things that, we've all made wrong decisions, we've all taken wrong turns. But to be honest, to extend grace to ourselves as well, we only ever act on the information that we have at that particular moment.
Mm-hmm.
And we only ever act out of our capability to disseminate that information in that moment. So I look at my younger self, and I don't look at my younger self with any sense of judgment. I look at my younger self and say, he had so much to learn. Mm-hmm. I'm not the person I was yesterday. I'm not the person I was two months ago or 2 years, because I have learned more. Am I better at it? That's for other people to judge, but you get up and the mercies of the Lord in you every morning. And I'd written a discipleship course, about 20 years ago, and we still run it actually in our church. And one thing I teach in it is right from the very start, and the whole way, repeated the whole way through the course, is remember, every day with Jesus is a brand new day.
So good.
You can just, and I think that kind of simple idea that you get up and it can be a brand new day if you just think about it like that and don't carry everything around with you.
And one of the things that you said was you make the decision with the perspective, the tools, all the different history that you have today. So in this, none of us planned on this for 2020. That wasn't in the planning books of the summit here. It wasn't, but now I guess what we're trying to do as leaders here is to assess with the tools we have today, if something like this would happen again, or if, as they're talking about, there may be more, but when this happens again, how are we going to make better choices with better tools? And how do we not get caught off guard, or how do we make better adjustments to our plan?
Yeah. I think, and that's where experience, comes in, and learning from that. I think this is a terrible time, and it is like the best of times, the worst of times. It's that kind of cliche statement. We as a church, it's been tough, like every church is experiencing, but we've grown in so many ways. Mm-hmm. had to really sharpen our game on that. And I've been saying it, for years in our leadership meetings, that we should be, investing in our tech more and trying to consider our online, presence, because that's the first place that people are engaging with us.
Right.
It's no longer the first time they'll just come to the foyer of the church. And now we find ourselves so much more aware of the online presence. And this is where we are. And we're reaching so many more people and encouraging so many more people. And I mean, our pastor, Brian, says that, our prayer meetings now, we used to have our kind of our prayer meetings, and people would just kind of come in and go out and, have a prayer time, and that'd be fine. But now the prayer times are much longer online and everybody stays online longer. And it's just things like that. There are always positive things coming out of this.
So speaking about positive things, so you've shifted out of that major role. You still have a role there, but what is God calling you to do to impact your community in a new way?
Well, yeah, and this is where it just gets, for me, it was completely unexpected. And I mean, I've always, I came into the church kind of just over 10 years ago, because my ministry was always outside of the church. So I was always in a church, but ministering outside of a church in music or in worship or encouraging people. So I had a little bit of an itinerant idea of ministry to that while I was anchored in a home church. And so that kind of has, because that's always been on my radar, I'm always looking for things to do and looking for where God wants me. And this, well, I need to kind of go back a few years. Things were changing for me. The way my ministry work kind of goes, it's usually a proportion of my ministry work is in a church, and then a proportion is outside of a church. And then my income, I'm a bit like, Paul being a tent maker. So I look, I'm looking for, I've been teaching guitar, I mean, coaching kind of people in churches, and churches would hire me to come in and work with their worship teams. And so I'm self-employed. Technically, I'm self-employed. And so it's always been these little kind of streams going on all the time. So we met a couple of friends a few years ago in another church, a lovely couple who we've become very good friends with. I was working in their church to help develop their worship team, and their worship leader, she baked wedding cakes, and her husband was a wedding photographer and still is a wedding photographer. And we kind of, got working together. And I said, look, why don't we try and put some music in between so that we can, because I said, look, I need some fresh income stream coming in, because some things were coming to an end. And I said, well, why don't we try to put, maybe the two of us together as a duet, and when we're doing cakes, and we can maybe offer weddings as a package. And this was the idea. And so we rehearsed stuff, and, we got one or two kind of weddings. And I thought, yeah, this is great. This is really, thank you, God, for a little income stream coming in on this. And then that just sort of started to kind of ebb away a little bit. And then I got a telephone call, or a Facebook message rather, from a little dementia care unit about 20 minutes away from me in Belfast. And Catherine, she lives like an hour away. So it was right in the middle. And I said, look, why don't we meet there, and why don't we sing for these dementia patients? So we decided to do that, but both of us were really nervous because we'd never done this before. So I put together some songs, from the 50s and 60s, stuff that my dad and I'd heard my dad playing, and stuff that I'd loved, stuff like from the Beatles and kind of Buddy Holly and stuff like that, and about a couple of hymns. And so we turned up, and both of us, and we literally came into this room full of cardboard cutouts. It's the only way I can just explain how the people were. They were all sitting in the chairs, completely motionless, except for one little lady who kept repeating, "It's really nice to see you. It's really nice to see you." And then she'd repeat it again, like that was the first time she'd seen us.
Mm.
So we didn't know what was going to happen until we started singing, and they just came to life. I mean, it was like, you talk about, it's not that it was signs and wonders, but it was kind of that kind of experience for us. It was like, oh my goodness, what's happening? And we both left that day and said, if music isn't for that, what's it for? Mm. These people towards the end of their lives who are suffering from dementia, these moments wherein it obviously has some kind of major impact. So we decided to try and push into this, and God began to open a lot of doors for us over a period of time. And it's like when you start in any business, because in essence, to a degree, it's a business, but it's an income stream for us, but it's not very big, because care homes really don't have the budgets, and there's two of us and travel and everything. But doors started to open, and the strange thing was, and you were. So I'm going to come back to your tactical moments, and had I missed any tactical moments? For years, my wife had been saying to me, "Why don't you sing in care homes?" And my response was, "No, I don't think it's right." Where in my head I was going, "Well, that's the end of my music career right there."
Right, yeah.
Okay, so I'm not going to go singing. Seriously, no. And but she kept saying, and then it was our 30th wedding anniversary 2 years ago, and Grace had always wanted to go to Prince Edward Island to see Anne of Green Gables' house. So we took a cruise from Boston, and we took a cruise up to Prince Edward Island. And on the cruise, we got to meet this lovely couple, and they were in their 70s. And it turned out this guy sang in care homes in Canada. And Grace is looking at me, and she's nodding at me like, "Man," I'm going, and I'm thinking, God, is this a hint? Because she's been saying it constantly. Even recently, before that, she'd been saying it to me. And then, so I came home, and it was after I came home, we got the invitation to go and sing in this little dementia care unit. So I thought, right, I got to take that hint. So we started to take some steps of faith and do that. And so then coming into this year, we were really excited because we were starting to build up a little bit of momentum. We have people who support us financially, which we need. Our goal is to be able to provide this work for free for care homes. But we aren't in a financial position to be able to do that. So people help. They help us so we can go to a care home, and whatever a care home can give us, then our supporters can help us to match that, so that Catherine and we can keep going and doing this. So being really excited to come into this year because God was opening doors, and then COVID hit, and care home work shut down.
Right.
I mean, because these are the most vulnerable, and this is the one environment which will, at this stage, I can't see us getting into care homes for the foreseeable future.
Right.
Everything else will open, but care homes will not, because they're the most vulnerable. So we had 3 months of just I can only describe it as just anguish that, that this ministry and this work that we had, which we felt so much joy from, we saw so much joy being shared with our elderly in it. And we couldn't do it. And then God blessed us with someone who provided us with, we went and we'd borrowed a little garden gazebo, mm-hmm. and we got invited to do a care home, and we were able to sing from the outside. But in true Northern Irish weather, which is probably, I think Ohio might have something similar, it just started to rain, and not even a strong wind, but this wind started to blow this gazebo. And of course, I had all the sound gear, and I thought, well, any moment now we're going straight to heaven because we're getting electrocuted because the rain was pouring off us and coming, this river towards us. So we had Instagrammed the whole thing. We had an Instagram story of us under this with the rain, and the residents were in their lounge looking out the window and waving at us, and we could see the fear on their faces as well. and then so a guy I know, he asked us how we were getting on with our work, and I said, look, we're struggling. We can't get to the homes. The homes are not getting entertainment. They're not getting anybody to come and provide anything like this. These people for 3 months have been locked in. And people with dementia, music is so important. I mean, we experience the importance of music in church. But there's a vibration in music. There's a happiness. There's a joy. The Bible says, in Zephaniah, that the Lord rejoices over us with singing. And I believe that's a universal principle in terms of how the universe is constructed. Music is a joyful vibration, which is the essence of, what God has blessed us with. And these people with dementia, we did a lot of research, and we discovered that, when you sing to dementia patients and you sing songs that they remember, then their emotional level moves right up. And live music has 60% more impact than recorded music.
Wow.
So when they hear live music, the effect, there's a nursing home in England, and they carried out a clinically guided study with a general practitioner. And what they did was they gave all of these residents, they gave them little iPods, and he put a little specific playlist of songs that would be relevant for them. And they gave them to them, and they let them listen to them. And over a period of about 3 or 4 weeks, they watched to see what would happen. And their need for medication dropped significantly.
Wow. And
what they found is when you sing to, I've heard testimonies from care home workers that when you sing to the elderly, afterwards they communicate with each other better, they eat better, and even if in dementia terms they may not remember that you've been there, even 5 minutes after you've finished. And I've experienced this. 5 minutes after we finished, they have not remembered that we've been there, but their emotional level has raised, that they feel happy.
Wow.
And some of the stats that are coming out say that the average amount of time that someone will spend in a care home, the average is 9 months. So, you're with these people at this latter stage of their life.
Mm-hmm.
And for us to be able to provide music, to sing songs they remember, to minister some hymns and lift their spirits, and it's the most precious thing. And to not be able to do that was devastating. And so a guy I know said, how can we get you out there so you can do this from the outside? And we found a company that imports these very robust industrial gazebos, these pop-up tents that effectively car showrooms use when they're doing outside conferences or shows. And these things will take 35-mile-an-hour winds. They have sides on them we put up. So we turn up with this black pop-up tent that takes us about 15 minutes to put up. We get the sides up. We can put lighting in it. We stay on the outside of a home, sometimes in the pouring rain. And we play towards, if a home has a lounge area and they can open doors or they can open their windows, we can still provide some kind of entertainment and encouragement for them, and spirit lifting and soul lifting music. So that's what we're doing. That's been the big change for me this year in terms of music. And in spite of restrictions, we're still able to do things by the grace of God in this.
That is so.
God,
that is so awesome.
we've got a window, we're heading into the winter. So we're trying to kind of get to homes and encourage them, because I think probably mid-October, it just could be just physically difficult to do it.
Right.
Well, I think we can get it. I think we could probably run a heater in the tent. Is that good?
If you can get it done, I'm sure you guys will be able to. I love the story.
We'll try.
Yeah, I love the story because it highlights that we can't stop what we're called to do. We can't stop ministering to people, encouraging them with music, making disciples, teaching and baptizing and doing all the things. The restrictions do not stop our calling. They just may give us tactical opportunities to make changes, to see God move in a new way and in a new faction of life. And so that's super encouraging. I know that what I wanted everyone to hear today was that you had a plan. The plan didn't work out the way that you thought it would. And, but God is blessing, and he's bringing people into your path that are equipping you to do what you're called to do. And oftentimes, if we're not moving forward, if we're not, I love the statement, action creates direction. You can't turn a parked car. So, once you're moving somewhere and that you're called to do music, and that, this is, lots of words have been spoken about this. And so you start to do it, and then, something comes in from the side to slow you down. That if you're moving in the right direction, there are always people there that are called to assist you in moving there.
Without a shadow of a doubt, that's been my experience. I've found that just things you just come out of left field, just miraculously, you just meet someone, or I think the strange thing for me is when you try to go looking for them, you can't find them.
Yeah, exactly.
And everything I've tried in my experience has never really worked. But you're absolutely right. I think the first thing is make the decision that you know what you want to do. And, there's a couple of hurdles that we had. We'd never gone into homes before. We didn't know how to do this. We were tentatively making connections. Nobody had heard of us. So we were complete, like a fresh startup. So that's been difficult enough to try to get that and to build up your reputation. The plan in my head has always been to build up trust relationships with the homes. And so we will go in and we will provide effectively an afternoon of pop music entertainment, retro pop music entertainment. If we know that there's a few homes that are lovely homes, there are loads of lovely homes over here in Northern Ireland, and great people running them, and great people looking after our elderly. And so there's a few church-based homes. So the Presbyterian Church have a few homes here. And so we were able to go in and do, worship songs with them. But quite often they're asking us to come in and do, look, we're having a party. Would you come in? And we're serving, tea and coffees and mocktails for them all. And we do that. But my plan has always been to be able to go in and then to offer the opportunities to go in and do little devotional times with them in services. Because that's both of our hearts, that's both of our roots, is ministry from church and worship. And so we were in the very early stages of doing this, and then obviously COVID pops up. But it's like, it's the river of God just keeps flowing.
There you go.
And like any river, when you look at rivers, a lot of rivers will meander. And they meander because there will be a blockage that the river has to go around, but the river goes around it and still keeps going. So you may end up changing direction a little bit, but we keep going in the same direction. We keep going. Once you start on that path invites you in. One of the other hurdles was the financial hurdle is continues to be a big hurdle, because homes aren't funded to the degree that entertainment is a high priority. And as a duet going in, we have double the cost of everybody else. And this is where our supporters, we didn't know how to square this peg, because it was costing us more to get to home sometimes than because we're an hour apart. So one of us has to travel for an hour, and then some homes we're going to are maybe an hour and a half away. So just vehicle running costs alone, it was costing us more to get to home. So we didn't know how we were able to sustain this and how to kind of, keep paying our bills. And this is where supporters we began to just ask. We set up a GoFundMe campaign, and we've had a few donations, but we've always had little donations, at the right time.
Right.
Well, that's what I love. And now you just keep walking forward, and you keep, and like let me encourage many of your listeners out there who are maybe thinking about how they're going to respond to the financial climate that we're in. And, let me tell the story of my brother. My brother for years has felt that he should have his own business. And he is in a business where he services fire extinguishers for companies and does electrical testing over here. And he attempted to start last year. He bought himself a van. He got himself all the paperwork sorted out. He got a logo sorted out, and he was about to hand in his resignation, and he got cold feet, and he pulled out. And this is where I think this is going to be so relevant to what we're talking about, because your destiny calls you, and your destiny has this way that God has designed to get you there. And I was quite upset with him, because I knew, I said to my brother, I said, look, I said, David, you're meant to do this. Trust God in this. And he said, but I have a mortgage and I have a family. And I said, I know, but listen, I understand why you make this decision, but I'm gutted for you, because I know you can do this, and I know God wants you to do this. I know you'll be blessed doing this. I said, believe in yourself and believe in God, but he didn't. COVID hits, and he gets made redundant, and he panics. And his van, which was sitting outside my mother's house, effectively rotting, because he bought a van. He was paying for a van that wasn't on the road, and he wasn't using it. It was sitting doing nothing. He wasn't even sure it would start. He went and he phoned me, and he said, I'm going to do this. And I said, David, now's the time to do it, because you have no other choice. Mm-hmm. He started, and within his first 2 weeks was getting calls to come and service fire extinguishers. He was getting accounts. He was getting contracts. He's now, about 6-7 weeks into this, and his business just keeps building. And he keeps phoning me every day, and he goes, you're never going to believe what's happened. I'm going, of course I'm going to believe it, because you took a step of faith. And, right. And he was really encouraged in his own faith. And the thing is, he says himself, the challenge is still there. He was afraid of losing the security. But when he lost the security, he had no other choice. Now, he doesn't have necessarily any more security, but he has much more faith and belief now. And when your faith and your belief grows, that's where security is. When you know that God is doing something, you recognize God is doing something. It's why the children of Israel, when they put up altars every time God did something, because it was to remind them in the future, look, don't forget, God can do this.
Right.
Trust him, take that impulse, make a decision, and when God wants to get you somewhere, he will get you somewhere. And, I'm encouraging my brother, and I said that to encourage some people out here maybe listening, to say, look, maybe you need to take a step of faith. The idea has been bubbling in your head, that something to do. Listen, do it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. When I left, I was working for a blue chip company, like 15 years ago, and I had everything. I had a pension. I had a good job, a company car, and I felt God called me out of that, to leave that, to go into nothing. I mean, not even people can understand this, to not do anything, but just take a step of faith, give up 60% of our household income to just trust God. And I agonized over that for a year. wrote in my journal. God gave me all these verses and all these words. I wrote them. Still wasn't enough. Do you know what actually tipped the balance for me? I was cutting the grass late one summer, and one thought came to my head, and this was the deal clincher. If you don't try, you'll never know. Which will you regret more at the end of your life? Never trying, or trying and at least knowing how it went?
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. You know, I think that maybe there's some people out there that have a van that's rotting in the yard because they went so far and then stopped and didn't finish and didn't take the step. But I think there's also people that are out there doing the new deal and watching. But we're not saying that you need to walk away from something. What we're saying is be so in tune with what the Lord is saying to you, the words that are being spoken over you, the comments from your wife or your husband that man, you really should think about this stuff and you really should do this. We often discount those voices the most. But man, oftentimes they're hearing the voice of God too and directing us where to go and taking those leaps. I mean, my wife, a couple of years ago, she was praying. She's like, I think I'm supposed to quit my job. I've been here 17 years. I think I'm supposed to quit. And it was probably 70% of our income at the time, because I had a starting company and different things. And she did, we prayed about it. We had confirmation. She quit, found out very soon after that her father had cancer, and she was able to spend a year with him, ministering to him and just loving on him. And he passed away. But that year, if she would have put her head down and kept working and working and working and working, I know that there would have been a time in her life down the road that she would have regretted not making that transition. And so, man, we just have to be obedient to what God is saying in the hour.
It's so similar to my story, because when I left my job, then at the end of that year, my dad he went into hospital with a painful back. And then in the January of the next year, got a terminal cancer diagnosis.
Yeah. Wow. I'm sorry about that.
That next year, I was able to really help my mom, through this transition of life that she was going through. So yeah, I think you've got to pay attention to the impulses. It's why I encourage people to keep journals. Mm-hmm. Yeah. To put. We don't want to be making rash decisions. When I left my job, I took a lot of counsel from people and talked to a lot of people and had a lot of people praying for me. And so it wasn't a quick decision, but you've got to take note of the markers, and you've got to pay attention and have awareness as well of your own journey. Because everything that I do now, I guess there's nothing I'm doing at the minute which is in essence brand new to me.
Right.
Since the person that I am, the person that God has made me to be since I've been a kid, I'm using elements of all of those parts of me now, because, I even felt, a couple of years ago, suddenly God prompted me to write children's books. And I never even considered doing that, but I used to draw cartoons when I was a kid, and I thought, well, I thought that was part of something that God would never, really want to use that I have, and so now I self-publish children's books, and I, as you see behind me, I paint and draw angels to encourage people. So, I think look at what you have. It's like what God says to Moses, what's in your hand? Yep. Moses has a staff. Mm-hmm. But what's in your hand? What have you got? What can you use and do something with it,
Yeah. And man, such an encouraging time to just sit and chat with you about what God is doing. He's asking each of us now to look more on not the outward things that are going on, but look at the stuff that he's given us inside, the gifts, the talents, the destiny that he's given us. And the climate may change outside. You guys may have rain, but he provided another way to be able to endure that. And no matter what this situation that you're going in today, no matter what that situation is, there's a plan, there's tools in your toolbox, and there's people who will come around you to help you get where you're supposed to be. And so do not pause, do not get apathetic, do not live in fear. There is hope, and that hope is found in the Lord. And so, well, Andi, I thank you so much for being on today and sharing wisdom and just connection. And I still want to get back over to Ireland. I said I think that somebody made me commit that within 10 years I'd be back. So I've only got a handful. I've only got a handful yet to get back over there.
Yeah. Well, listen, I'll have words in ears and we'll get you over here.
There you go. Awesome. I'm looking so forward to being back over there. And this time I'll bring my lovely bride and we'll have fun. But man, thank you so much for being a part of this. We want to just bless you and all the things you're doing. And if you send over that link for GoFundMe, we'll put it on the podcast here and people can click on it and sow into what you're doing. I believe that it's not only amazing for what you're doing, but I think this could spawn other ministries around the world to go minister to those who are in most need in this hour and use the gifts in our toolbox to be able to pull that off.
Yeah. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank you. And rich blessings to all of you guys over there.
Thank you. We'll bless you. Take care.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Sum It Up. You can check us out at thesummitdover.com, and you can email us at summitup@thesummitdover.org.